Hello again. It's been a little while, and I guess I haven't been drinking as much wine, but here we are. It's on this afternoon, early evening. We're going to have two bottles of wine, and not because they're associated in any way, but they're both bottles that I've been working my way through over the last week or so, and I'm enjoying both of them, and they're both different. They're both non-traditional, at least to the most people, and so I think it'd be nice to kind of pair them together and discuss at the same time, maybe make one longer video as opposed to shorter ones. If there's any feedback on that format, please let me know. Always good to hear what people think about this stuff. Anyway, there's white here by Chateau Belle Vue, whom we've discussed the reds of quite a few times together. So their white is called Petit Geste, and this is a 2015. This label is interesting. This white, the labels are made by the family, by the children. They are artists in their own right, and they make these labels. And this was the label made for the wedding of the son that this bottle was served at. So it was all, it's got also a personal connotation for me, and it kind of also speaks to how these wines are made, the family, the investment they made in the land and in the production in the country over the last 25 years, and how it still sort of keeps them together. So again, as we discussed before, Chateau Belle Vue is in the mountains of Mount Lebanon, facing the Mediterranean, but it's pretty high elevation, 11, 12, 1300 meters. And so you're gonna get really cold winters, a lot of snow, and the summers, they do get pretty hot, but since you are with all the hills, it's not a straight line. You're gonna have uneven exposure, and you have to be careful about where you have your plots and what's gonna mature first, and that kind of stuff. This is a very interesting white blend. It says a 65% Sauvignon Blanc and 35% Viognier. I'm not sure who else makes that kind of blend. This is not a big production, about 1,000 bottles. And so what strikes most, and I think at first look, is really that color. It's just an incredibly golden color. And it's not necessarily golden because it's evolved and it's kind of these older white wines that turn a little bit brown. No, it's just gold and pure and straight, and that's just, I think it's incredible. On the nose, it's very refreshing. There's a lot of fruits, pineapple, grapefruit, a little bit of peach, but not the sweeter necessarily kind of peach. A little bit of that acidity, but and a little bit of sort of a tiny bit of smokiness, which is interesting. Maybe that's just how the wine has evolved after being open, but it really adds a kind of an umami component to all the sweetness, which I think is just a tremendous contrast. On the palate, I'm getting lychee, which I think is a little bit of jasmine. These hills in the mountains of Lebanon are very flavorful in terms of the aromas, like the herbs and the lavender and the thyme and the olive trees. So I think you're gonna get some of that in the wine, at least in terms of how aromatic. The wines of Belle Vue I've always found to be incredibly aromatic, and you get that here as well. Really just delightful. It was a big hit with the guys. Again, they're not used to something like this. And this is a wine that I think we're gonna start being able to find in the US more easily. So highly recommended if you wanna try it. I'm gonna look at the alcohol here. This is, 13%. So it has not reached the levels you find in some of the other wines in Lebanon because of the sun and the heat. Anyway, keep it in mind, delightful Petit Geste by Chateau Belle Vue. Let's go to the red here. And this is a Syrah or Shiraz, let's say, but they call it Syrah, from Australia, by Ochota. Ochota Barrels is the, and we discussed the wine of his a few years ago. Was a Grenache. Taras Ochota was a very young winemaker. He died in I think 1920. In 2020, he was in his 40s. He was sick, and so. But he was this really creative, young, a little bit rebellious a winemaker, a huge music fan. He and his wife started this after he grew up in a winemaking family that emigrated from Ukraine to Australia. He worked in a lot of different places in California, in Australia. He even worked for Two Hands, which is one of my really favorite, let's say, Australian Syrah maker. But they make this really rich, expressive, traditional kind of Shiraz Syrah. He decided he wanted to make cleaner, lighter, fresher, more immediate wines, Syrah, Grenache, and others. I mean, he makes just a number of cuvées, and it's kind of hard to keep track of. And they're always fresh, they're always young. This is a 2022. And again, this is 4,500 bottles produced, so not a big production. They have a lot of different micro productions. He ages the wines in smaller barrels, neutral smaller barrels, just so that if like you have one big food, he doesn't have a big production, it doesn't know if it goes bad, the whole thing will go bad. Here, he's got batches that can evolve differently, and if the risk is mitigated, let's say, and then he can enjoy putting them together in the final bottling. Anyway, here we are. This is called Where's the Pope? And again, these things, I don't necessarily know that they have any meaning necessarily. I think there's some musical connotation, like the Grenache Green Room, I think was something to do with music production. This may have something to do with music, but I'm not sure what it is. And again, the color is usually lighter than what you'd expect from Australia or even a French Syrah. Not very extracted. That's also one of his mottos. And on the nose, it's planted on schist, so you're gonna get some of that Northern Rhone also soil as well. And this is in McLaren Vale, so traditional Syrah home. On the nose, the most persistent and the most striking thing is the pepperiness. And it's just very immediate. It reminds me of some of the young Saint Josephs I've had from 2021 when they were very young, they were very fresh. And 2021 was a less hot year, it was sort of a fresher, cooler year. Production was very low. And so you get that sort of immediacy. Some cherry also, again, more of an acidic, tart version of the cherry. But the pepper is really what struck at you. And that's just incredible. So much pepper in a plant that has nothing to do with really. And I mean by pepper, I mean, fine ground, black pepper. This is a very low alcohol wine, 11.2%. And you get that, there's no, and that doesn't mean there's more sugar. I don't think there's a lot of sugar, and there's not a lot of alcohol. But there's this sort of directness, there's a lot of acidity, there's a kind of a tartness and a little bit of tannin on the finish. The finish is pretty long, but it's a drying long finish. It's a very nice wine to have cool in the summer. And I guess this is what brings these things together. Wines that can be had in the summer. They're fresh, they don't have to be super cold, but they have inherent and innate freshness that really helps them go down. And again, this is a wine, it's not necessarily always easy to find, but you can find it in the US. It's not cheap, these are small production, handcrafted wines if you want. And they are worth the detour if you want to try something different. while you're not straying too far from what you like about Syrah. You know, the freshness and the pepperiness of a young, well-made Syrah. Cheers, and see you again soon.